Welcome to the sixth installment of our webinar series. This one is a little different than some of the previous webinars that we've held, and those that have been following along, they've learned about products, they've attended some CEUs, they've hopefully got their credits, and there's another number of other things. This one's a little different. We're doing a contractor webinar today, and we've got some live guests on the line with us that are joining in, and we're gonna just have an open discussion. We're gonna talk about some trends in the industry and get their input, and hearing it right from them. And it's really kind of neat because it's not just local to Lightline or Ontario or anything. We've got even some attendees from the US and coast to coast in Canada. So it should be pretty exciting. Just a quick little reminder though, guys, this is like an open session, right? So even the participants that are joining in to listen, just make sure you're muted there, guys, because it will start to ring through and create a bit of a feedback loop if you don't have yourself in headphones. All right, here we go. As I'd mentioned, a little different, right? So we're just going to have some discussion, some open topics. I'll ask a couple of questions, and we'll see if we can't learn something from these fine individuals. The lovely Sarah Silverstein will be mediating the forum with myself, and without any too much of an explanation, I had hair then, which was pretty cool. So I made sure to use an old picture, but you can see me now, obviously, as I'm talking, that has changed. But if you do have questions, guys, be sure to fill it out in the chat section. We'll try to find some time at the end if we can address as much as possible. But without further ado,
Steve, I didn't know I was mediating, but this is exciting.
Yeah, you're suddenly in.
All right, suddenly I'm there. All right. Also an old picture when I had hair.
Good one. I like it. So who are our guests today? Well, we've got 4 individuals here joining. We've got Mr. Steve Benedict, owner of Benedict Electrical, and he's based out of Owen Sound, Ontario. So he gets involved in some commercial and some resi work. They've got some custom builds up there that keeps him creative and busy, and also a well-renowned company in that area, definitely doing some good work in the region and on the commercial side as well. Matt Bishop, owner of Caltech Electrical Services out of Calgary. So Matt's joining us. He's got a pretty nice backdrop right now. He claims to be in the Bahamas, but he's actually in winter Calgary, which is still getting snow.
Yeah, that's right.
Matt does a lot of commercial work and is quite familiar with a lot of the players in the market there and does a good job. Then from South Carolina, we've got Jed Aho, who joins us, and we're privileged to have him on board here to hear a little more about things south of the border, for those tuning in from Canada, but also he's got some unique things that he does with his company. And I'm not sure if Bonnie has been able to connect yet, but hopefully she can join us before too long. Bonnie Hartog, she's the lighting manager for Evolution Electrical out of Winnipeg. Bonnie's a little unique on the panel. She actually has a background that spans from manufacturing through to the distributor channel and into the actual contracting side. So if we're able to catch her, it'll be pretty good to have her take on some of these things, some of these topics. So let the conversation begin. So guys, we think of ourselves as lighting experts, right? Well, sort of. I mean, we work in lighting. We'd like to think we know good lighting, but really kind of do we, right? And I think it's often open to interpretation, but a lot of times we find, design can be configured in a number of ways. Specification is one. A lot of times, things can get changed on site, or there's requirements that need to alter current designs. And a lot of times it lands in your court, as electrical contractors. And, it's always interesting for us to hear your side of the story. So, the first question is, what is good lighting? How important is good lighting? And how do you work with your clients to help them understand the value of an upgrade? What does that actually mean? Steve Benedict, why don't I toss this to you first to maybe lead us off?
Oh, really? Okay. Well, like my opinion on good lighting is basically, always supplying the right amount of light for the areas that you're working in, like different scenarios. There's been projects where I've come across and we're in a restaurant, and the architect's like, let's do a whole bunch of hanging lights over all these tables. And then I look at the owner and I says, are you going to move the tables around in this area? They're like, yeah. I says, do you want hanging lights over top of tables? No. I'm like, so then we revised the plan, and that's and we ended up going with a pot light and lighting the area instead of lighting over specific sections. So like, for the importance of good lighting, it's to know your area, and it is very valuable in restaurant industry, commercial industry, even in the manufacturing end. So yeah.
So you can see it change on site quite often, right? Not always do you have, set plans that necessarily stick. I mean, it's obviously different for the different types of builds and jobs that are out there. If it's small scale, where you might have an owner that's more hands-on, could be different than, like a multi-resi type application.
Yeah.
You'd say, and a lot of times those changes are right there on site, right? Sometimes it's a practical approach that you might have. That maybe might have been an oversight.
And sometimes you take the customer by the hand and you try to lead them down the path, and they go, no. And then you turn around halfway through and they're like, yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
As Steve knows.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Matt, maybe on the commercial side, a little more, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
For me, good lighting is just basically achieving what it is you're going for. Thinking like a lobby setting, you want some depth, so you want like light in one area, shade in another area, whereas in like a work area, you'd want just more even lighting with a high lumen level. So I would say it's kind of depends, basically what Steven's saying, depends on what it is they're looking for. Either, like I said, some content, texture to the lighting, or else just like an even lighting throughout.
How do you find presenting some products to the clients in that regard? If there's a design or something that they've got in mind, you might have something to show them or discuss. How do you find that to be received? Is it a challenge? Fairly easy? What do you think?
I think most really like the sample when you take one and plug it in and just show it to them kind of live on the spot, either in their own meeting room or in where they're going to put it. I find that's the most useful way to do it. Because they can actually see it, because right now there's millions and millions of products. So it seems like when you send a cut sheet, it's like, yeah, I get it. There's a picture on it and it tells me all the things, but they don't have the time to learn about it. So to actually take one to them and show them settings that it can do, or how it's going to look against a certain paint color or whatever, seems to be the best for our application anyway.
Definitely. Thanks. Jed, what are your thoughts there? Anything different south of the line?
I would agree that for lighting, it's important that it does what it's supposed to do, depending on the area, what you're lighting, and that it doesn't. There's no compromise on. It might put out good light, but it doesn't install well, or it installs nicely, but then there's the lifetime of the light isn't what it's supposed to be, or it doesn't dim well. So having it install and function across the board, and the warranty to be good. Once I'm confident in a product and a line of products, I usually will stick with it, but it's got to meet all those requirements.
For sure. Yeah, and I think being able to present that to the client, obviously, I mean, you've got some background with the product, better idea on how that's going to handle and stand up. I mean, it speaks, it's a testament to yourself and your business, right? You're standing behind a product that's also your warranty, right? So I think something like that comes across quite well. And, I'd like to assume that they would see that as, on the same side, right? You're describing a product and the benefits of it, or, working with them on something that they're after, just to show some value. Yeah, it's an interesting take, when you've got products like that. Definitely some that may be in question, or certain things, even coming from a client. I don't know if Bonnie's on the line here. I wasn't able to search her name, so I don't know if we'll get her at this point, but we'll carry on. We've got a couple more questions to keep going through here, guys. So as a manufacturer, it's very common for us to ask ourselves, about about the contractor side of things, right? Typically, you know, if we look at our sales channel, we are usually approaching the distributor part of that channel or the resellers or anything like that. We do obviously work with contractors to a degree and as much as possible. But we often, you know, ask ourselves, you know, what's going on in the contractor's mind? You know, how are they approaching it? What would cause them to go one way or another? You know, price or quality or warranty or any of those things. So the question is, what influences your lighting choices, and what steps do you take given the opportunity to design a space? Jed, I still got you up there. Why don't you take this one?
So yeah, what influences my lighting choice? I think the biggest, you know, starting off, it's the client, me knowing the customer and knowing the budget, and coming in with some awareness or learning what that is early on is good, because as soon as obviously if there's a designer, an architect, somebody else already in line, you know, as a contractor, we're having to fall in with their some of what they've already selected or are leaning towards. But we always seem to have a way to influence being the installer and start moving into the design, you know, pushing the design and changing the design on it. And so for me, having a line of fixtures with different price levels is important, because as soon as if I'm sensing that there's a limited budget on an area or a project, you know, it would eliminate a lot of fixture options or
Right.
even quantities. So you start to you know, be limited in that area. Otherwise, really looking at the space and knowing what you want to accomplish, you know, what you want to do. I like everybody else seem to be trending towards, you don't want to see the source of light, you want the light to do its job, unless it's a designer piece. So you really want to be able to people to walk into a space, whether it's outdoors or indoors, and have experience, and they don't even know what they're having, why is it good. They may not know it because they don't see, you know, 50 cans in the ceiling,
Right.
because a lot of them are hidden or indirect or regressed, and just different ways that space and areas are lit. Help.
Sure.
It really, so that again is on the design part, but it pushes me to start thinking about what fixture options are out there that can accomplish this.
Do you find that changes? I mean, obviously from client to client, but you'd have discussions with them previously. You're going to have in your mind the different products you want to use. You know, similar to the first question, you know, when you've got that sort of that arsenal ready to go, you find it a lot easier to kind of change that conversation a little bit from, you know, maybe they're expecting 50 downlights in the ceiling. You're able to tell them, you know, hey, it's actually changing. It's a little different, right? These are some of the things you can do. Do you find that conversation, how is it received? Is it?
You know, I think it's well, because it works when you think about lighting as anything that's creative, you know, because there's obviously the engineering aspect of lighting and the technical side, but really it's a creative process. And just like landscaping, where every landscaper is going to have his own fingerprints on it, how they do things, and I think the same with lighting design. And so sometimes I'm hearing what they say, like, you know, I've seen this somewhere else, or I've seen this on an HGTV show, or they've experienced it somewhere else. But they're really just looking for what art they like, basically, or what experience they like. So learning that, the quicker you learn that, the quicker you can steer the direction. And then
Sure.
Of course, it's important that myself, we're confident in what the final product's going to be. So once I know I can achieve what they're looking for, and I'm confident in the product, and I'm confident in the outcome, it just becomes easier to sell. The selling is easy, yeah.
And as that technology advances, but you're as familiar with it, you know, as it comes out, it just makes it that much easier to work with the client, you know, talk about, you know, that upsell opportunity or the upgrade. It kind of buries in there. Nice. Hey, Steve, Benedict, you've had a couple unique designs I know that I've seen some pictures of. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I have to agree with Jed. He like basically covered on my wheelhouse on the same topic. Like we look for cost, we look for durability and longevity in a product line. Like there's specific manufacturers that I use over and over and again, just because I know I can trust them. They do the job. All the guys that we have working for us have no problem installing them because they're easy to use. And then like you said, they like, for example, of course, Lightline, you have the Slim and you have all these other brands. So the Slim, the gimbals, and then you get up to the Sigmas and then the super awesome fixture, the Helos. And then being able to use those in certain scenarios. Like I was talking about the kitchen, for instance, or the dining room, for instance. And we ended up doing, it was all open ceiling, but you know what? I put pot lights in there and I made them recess up into the ceiling and covered them up. And then in another scenario, we had a guy with a 35-foot cathedral ceiling on a resi project. And it was nice to know that we had a product that we could rely on. And I called up our sales guy, it was Troy, that works for Steve. And I'm like, Troy, I'm up on this challenge. I don't want to put 100 gimbals in this guy's ceiling. What can we do? So we end up coming up with a Sigma, the 2-inch Sigma with a light refracting lens. So we don't have the gimbals hammering out of the angle. And so it's a lot to do with, looks and style and feasibility and cost. So
And awareness helps too, right? I mean, if you're familiar with an option, being able to accomplish something on that steep of a pitch, you gotta know the guy or know the person that knows what to find and where to get it. There was one other unique job that you'd done. This is a year or so ago, and I remember seeing some pictures, and it was that shop that you were working on. Do you mind commenting a little on that quickly, how the client's ask or, his requirement was nothing surface mounted, right?
Yep.
Is that correct? And you ended up, just sort of, creating this sort of ceiling effect with a lot of downlights. So it's kind of, it's a little unorthodox in a sense, but I mean, that speaks more to what the client was looking for, and you working with them to accommodate the solution instead of, just, installing whatever or going against their ask. Comment on that really quick?
Well, like Steve was mentioning there, like we started the project, we were doing all the site servicing, like that's amazing. Like he started with the shop. He can fit like 2 of my houses or 3 of my house, the house I live in this guy's shop area. And he's got this massive cathedral ceiling in the shop with all glass at the front. And he's like, I don't want to have a high bay. I don't want to have vapors on the ceiling. I want it nice and sleek. And I'm like, well, we got to find a product that will punch down 21 feet from the ceiling and hammer it. So we actually tried a couple products on site with the guy before the actual ceiling and all the wiring got done to achieve what he was looking for. So, yeah. It comes to having samples and products and being able to, like Steve said and Jed, work with your customers and achieve what they want. It's not, sorry.
I was going to say, and sometimes, they might not be aware either, in this as a scenario, right? I mean, you could have dropped a number of different commercial type luminaires down, some low bays, even some high bays if it was that high up to take care of it. But I mean, until this particular individual would have seen it, you're either redoing it
Yep.
or you're working together to find a solution. Hey, Matt, anything to add in here?
No, I just made a couple points on mine. Price point, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, sometimes the customer is set on a number or whatever, and you're kind of stuck using something you don't want to. So there's that. Visually appealing, so something that for me doesn't put out a glare, something doesn't, like when you walk into the room, I don't like what you see is the lighting. I like when you see the light, if that makes sense. Of course, ease of install for the guys doing the install, that's kind of a no-brainer, straightforward. Two more actually. Failure rate. So if we've got to go back at some point and replace them, we start losing money basically from that second on. And then the last one, which is I think extremely important, is access to product. So if you show something, you take a sample, whatever, and they like it, they want 100 of them, do it tomorrow. And
Right.
it's like, well, we're 8 weeks away from the first 2-week delay. You know what I mean? Then it turns into a real issue then. So yeah, just for me, I guess one more, I should have said 3 points. So the other thing would be when I'm doing a lighting job personally, I feel like you're putting your name on it. So when someone comes in later, they say, oh, who did your lighting? And then it's like, oh, this person or this contractor or this brand or whatever. And so, yeah, I like it to kind of check off all the items in the list.
Nice. Do you find, are you able to do that often?
Yeah. For the people that I work with, a lot of them are, they have something very specific in mind, and it's basically, it's not going to the wolves for me where it like everyone's going to come and lowball everything. A lot of the ones that I personally do are something that it's like a design by me,
Sure.
picked by me.
Design build. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So I think we have Bonnie on the line now. I was just texting with her, so apologies to everybody if it looked like I was kind of glancing off screen, but we were just communicating to get her set up. Bonnie, are you there? I think she might have to unmute her microphone.
Hello?
Hello, Bonnie. How are
Hey,
you this
can you
morning?
hear me? I'm good, thank you. How are you?
We're very well, thanks. Thanks for jumping on. Sorry for the technical issues getting you going here.
Yeah, I think I had the wrong time frame. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. So we just got into question number 2, and it was just about what types of influences you might have in your day-to-day. And just for for everybody's context here, Bonnie works for an electrical contractor out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. But she's got an interesting background. She has spent time on the manufacturing side as well, the distribution and the reselling side. So, I'm interested, Bonnie, the guys were talking about a number of things that influence those decisions, and I'm sure you can echo those. So maybe I'll just let you kind of jump into a quick answer on this one without too much time to prep, but I'm curious to see kind of how that might span across your time, from, manufacturing through to a distribution or a wholesale channel and into the contractor world.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting to go from the distribution side of things into the contractor side of things, because they're two totally different worlds, and how you deal with the customer and the end user are very different as well. So I find now that I'm with the contractor side of things that I can really get in touch with what the customer wants and needs versus just what I'm selling them because it's the best sale of the day type of thing.
Right.
So that's what I try and do to influence my customers, is to really look at what they need and what they want versus just what's the cheapest solution out there, because a lot of distributors just sell based on what's cheap, what's on the floor, what they want to get rid of, and things like that. So I try and educate my customers on the right product for the right application.
Perfect. And that is a unique perspective to be able to approach it both ways, right? And so now you're able to kind of see what's coming to you. You've got your sales reps that you deal with, but on the other hand, you've got that as well as the ability to understand the client's need and desire to be able to support it properly.
Yes. Yeah.
So the advancements of LED have given us the ability to position lighting into crazy new spaces, right? We don't run into the issues we've had historically with thermal, with heat, size limitations. I mean, we can run lighting in walls, we can put it up through ceilings and run it down the walls. We can do so much more with it now, just given the nature of its design and its tech advancements. And with this, we're seeing a massive trend and a movement towards smart homes and really kind of engaging that central control system. The question is, how does the importance of controls influence your design and lighting choices? Jed, we gave you a break there for a little while. Do you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, I think when we're involved in a project that has lighting controls, and residential or commercial, it's you're having to combine the dimmer module with the fixture, and balancing wattage and loads, and when we work with Tesla, with the power chargers and the power walls. And so we're starting to see all these worlds coming together, the lighting, the power generation, the controlling of it. And I think there's still some big missing pieces.
Sure.
It still feels real clumsy when you're printing off spec sheets, trying to figure out which dimmer is compatible with which fixture. And I think that it's probably it's the new frontier, really. I think is the controlling the lighting, but also managing all the power in a property.
Yeah.
Because of the solar and generating advances. So
Yeah, for sure.
that,
I mean, you talked earlier in the previous answer that, for you having this arsenal, this repertoire of products to go to a client with, one of those things, and it's always questionable and it always comes up, is the compatibility with control. So, for you having that offering available, pretty important that you've got, a fluent control luminaire sort of alignment. Do you find that a lot of times you can approach it easily like that, or is client's choice usually the part that becomes the hurdle when you've got a control system in mind or a type of control? How often do you find that is something you've got to work around?
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, if you could describe to them what the final product will be, and they understand what it will be like to live with a well-lit house and with the smart controls and the smart home. But you also tell them that, hey, this is something you don't just want anyone doing, because you do have to have an understanding of it, and you got to know where you could get in trouble, where they'll hate it versus love it if it doesn't work well. So right now, yeah, we find that it gives us a competitive edge to know and learn this stuff, and also know which products are the best, most reliable, and what work well together. So
nice. That's a pretty important piece of the pie, right?
it is.
Matt, what do you find on the control side of things? Do you see that compatibility component as part of your pitch? I mean, you listed a number of things that you use to check boxes off.
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
So for me, I just kind of listed out how the product works with controls. So like how it dims, how well it dims, what it looks like when it gets down to like 25% or 15% or so for flicker and stuff like that. Also, one of the applications for us, like we put those light line panels in, we're starting to put them in. We got a spec for high rise in them. And one of the operators' problems that they have is like a customer or a tenant, I guess, in one corner wants it to be like a lighter color or a 4K or whatever, right? Whereas another tenant wants 3K or something warmer. So I would like to go back and have a guy go do the work and pay him, but I think for the sale of the product, what the customer likes is that their building operator can go up and adjust the controls on those products, so they can make it dim. For a hallway, they can turn down the wattage a little bit. For that one office, they can change it to a warmer color or cooler color. So that's kind of for me when I go to controls, when I first read it, that's what I thought of is being able to control it on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we did a kind of a manufacturing area where we weren't sure what light level they wanted, and how particular they were on colors. So it was the same thing where we put in a bunch of lighting and they could adjust it. Then the product is in, we've done our part. And if they want to change, light levels, whatever, they can go back and do it themselves and save us from the callback of moving something around, right? So. Well,
it's ease of use, and it leaves it to them. It gives them the ability to make those changes.
Yeah.
That they'd want to see, right, at any given time. And it's a neat thing, as we just sort of scratch the surface on this whole controls dynamic and the architecture of the whole thing and how it's changing. It is kind of cool. Hey, Bonnie, what do you think about this? I mean, you come from, I think you do have a bit of a controls background anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you see it now? Working through the other channels of the electrical industry?
Yeah, controls is a huge thing. Most of my customers, I deal with universities, hospitals, personal care homes, things like that.
Right.
So controlling the lighting is huge for a lot of these customers. I also find in healthcare, having the ability to control light levels and color temperatures has become a bigger influence on customers, because they don't want just 5K. Like, you get a contractor that will go to a hospital and say, oh yeah, you need the whitest light possible, so put in 5K. But then you get headaches and patients can't sleep, and they're not looking at the overall health of the user.
Right.
So when I'm talking to my customers about controls, I always look at who's using the light in what type of space. Is it a waiting room? Is it an office? Is it a personal bed, like a long-term care home, something like that? And then I look at, how the light will affect the user. So using the light line panels has actually been great. I did a personal care home where I was doing corridors. I did a little library section, a cafeteria, and then a whole bunch of like beds, like rooms for users. I was able to use one single light line panel, but give the customer the option of controlling the light in different wattages, so it was not as bright in certain areas. With different ceiling heights, I was able to use like the 50 watt on a 12-foot ceiling, and then go to the 30 watt on the 9-foot ceiling. So
The flexibility is there for sure.
it's huge. Yeah. So having that controllable driver, I don't know about you guys, but in Canada, 347 volt has also been a big problem for us.
Yeah.
So having that universal driver has also been a
For
great
sure.
option.
Bonnie, do you find, institutional opportunities and applications like that, how do you find your ability to influence that is to be received? And particularly, these things are, largely spec driven. Do you find that for you, you're able to influence that at all? I mean, you'd mentioned working with the client, to look at different spaces within that facility. How often are you able to influence, choices of luminaire or control?
Quite a bit. I've managed to align myself over the years with the right people. And that's the thing when you're dealing with an agent or an engineer. They're not looking at the people in the building that are using the light. They're just looking at a drawing that says, here, put the cheapest thing in to win the job. So I find I try to align myself with the facility managers, the energy managers. The energy manager is a great person to have as a contact, because then you can really sell them on the right product with the right control for the right application.
Gotcha. Nice. Mr. Benedict, what do you think?
Well, on the color end of the spectrum for controlling lighting, it's great. I find for the importance of controls for all the applications that we do is finding the right one and sticking with it and knowing it inside and out. Like we use a specific product, and we use it in a residential application, we use it in commercial application, we use it in an industrial application, but they have so many different levels that it makes it great, because we know what we can get away with, we know what drivers to pair up with what lights, and we know how we can get we don't have to go and buy 5 different brands of a dimmer in order to match it up with a light. We know we buy this one dimmer, we can make it work with every light. Or that dimmer has an accessory that we can pair with the dimmer to work with every light. So in that aspect, it's great.
I've seen that too, in browsing your website, right? I mean, you advertise, it's not necessarily just about lighting, right? Or just about, the electrical rough-in, considering, a resi install, it's more than that too when you think of whole home control. That gets into things like window coverings, and some other things that you do advertise. So, not really reading between the lines, but I hear what you're saying. But it's a big piece of it for yourselves. And do you find, the investment in the training of that side, to learn about controls and compatibility, you find that is able to be a bit of a differentiator for you?
Well, at the beginning when we started, like I was like, okay, well, we're doing a lot of the stuff. This is the way of the future. You know, the initial investment to train 3 guys was kind of hard pill to swallow, but now that we're cranked up in that area and it's being more sought out by customers, so it's not even like a harder sell anymore.
Right.
It was definitely worth the investment to educate them. I like in our company, when we find products that we like, we try to pull in the sales guys through one of our local suppliers for that product and educate our guys on top of if there's more education needed. And then we learn about the compatibility and all that for the product, like control end of the product to the lighting end of the product and how they marry together.
Of course.
Yeah.
Nice. So LED today is pretty exciting, right? I mean, there's tons of opportunity. You think of just general space lighting, architectural, concept and design. Sadly, though, too often, you know, we're all challenged, you know, to overcome and compete with price-driven competition. Question is, in terms of lighting, how do you differentiate yourselves? Bonnie, why don't I let you take the lead on this one?
Okay. So as far as in Manitoba, a lot of our contractors do not employ a specific lighting person, a lighting designer that can do layouts and product selection and things like that. A lot of our contractors just rely on the distributor to do their layouts, to do their product selection, even to deal with their customers and go to site meetings and things like that. So we have really tried to shape our business around controlling the job from start to finish, right from product selection to installation. So we're trying to differentiate ourselves through knowledge and education to the end user. I also do like site visits where I'll go out to the customer. I'll bring product samples. Bringing the light line panels is actually a really interesting thing for end users to see when you show them the different color temperatures and how you can just select it on the back of the fixture. It always gets a lot of attention, and then it opens up the customer's mind to listening to me about other products and other things and ways to control it. So I find just by providing the customer with the knowledge and not trying to control the customer, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it really puts me a step ahead of my competition.
You know, it's kind of an interesting, a bit of an underlying theme that, you know, we keep seeing sort of recurring here. And that's, you know, being able to have those samples and to be able to describe the differences in the story, obviously is one of the best ways to help educate, you know, the client as it go downstream, right?
We
Jed,
took our office, Steve. Sorry, we took our office and we put in all types of LED product in our office, everywhere, in our boardroom, in our warehouse, in all of our manager's office, things like that. And I actually bring customers to our office and show them the flexibility of products, the different kinds of products and controls, and that has got me sales easily.
Interesting. So creating kind of your own showroom in itself, right? To be more of a one-stop shop for the client.
Yeah, exactly.
Good idea. Jed, do you have some comments to maybe echo that?
Yeah, I like what I can see what Bonnie's doing, and it's a lot of what we're doing, where we're finding ourselves where we used to just be a contractor installer and be paid to install things. Well, more and more we're being brought in as a consultant to oversee all the electrical parts of a project.
Right.
Because what would happen was you might have a HVAC contractor come in that sells generators, and then an audio video comes in and sells the lighting controls, and the project's being built by salespeople rather than by one person that cares that all these things are going to integrate well.
Of course.
And so where we had probably, you know, we were weak on design and engineering, and we were more just an installer contractor. As we began to gain knowledge and educate ourselves, we're being brought in as a consultant to say, yeah, that can work with this, and we can make that happen, or no, you know, that product does not work well with this one. So even if we don't sell all in all the parts of the project, we can still influence it by knowing
For sure.
how things are supposed to work. And,
Nice. Stephen, I kind of teased it a little bit when we were discussing, how you work with the controls to help differentiate yourselves. There's some other things that you do in your region that might be a little more unique.
No, it sounds like Jed and Bonnie, we kind of apply the same theory. Like, we have like my house, it's all automated through the controls that we install. As Steve knows, we have automated blinds, I have keypads, and I have different products all out throughout my house and throughout my parents' house and our shop. So basically, and then we've educated ourselves on all these products. So anything we've installed and we want to try out before we even start selling, we sell ourselves on it, or
Sure.
we find what we like, and that way we'd be like, you know what? When a customer says, well, why do you like this? Well, this is what I put in my house. This is what works.
Yep.
So I find, showing your customers that you rely on, like, you trust this product enough to put it in your house. Therefore, they're like, okay, well, if he's going to put it in his house, then I should have it in mine because he knows it's going to work.
Right.
Right.
That's
So
pretty clear.
Yeah. So I think it's the same line for everyone.
For sure. Matt, anything on your side there? You'd mentioned, when you've got the ability to do some of your own design, build work, you tend to see that through yourself a little more often. Is there anything that you do on behalf of the company there that, is Matt's kind of little sprinkle or his touch of expertise?
Not much more to add. Basically, we do the same thing. We have lights up in our shop, and some people come in and take a look at them. Same thing where they'll know that we're using the product. I have some in my house, so again, same thing. It lets me test the product to make sure that I can stand behind it as well.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I've got a whole lot to add other than just be echoing what everyone else said.
All good, no problem. So everybody that's joined in, kind of coast to coast in Canada, we've got likely some folks from down in the US. We're involved in the industry in one way or another. That could be entirely in lighting, like myself, or partially on the distribution side, or other types of specification, or anything really, contractors, installers. But in your opinions, what do you think the lighting industry could be doing better? Maddie, I made you wait there, so why don't we give you the first shot at this one?
Well, you got to be careful with who's on the line here when you're answering this kind of a question. I gotta tiptoe around it in my brain first before I say too much.
It wasn't supposed to be easy.
No, well, yeah, there's lots of ways to go with it, but I don't want to burn any bridges. But what you could be doing better as a lighting industry, if there was a way to limit garbage products from giving it a bad rap, that would be a really key feature, which I know is impossible. That's one of the things I find is you're beyond, like, LEDs used to start out as like it was special that you had LED, and now LED is like you can get name brand and you can get no name, and like sort of the luster of it being LED is no longer special.
Right.
So I think I'm just trying, like I said, there's a couple ways I want to say it, but I don't really want to say it. So there's that angle. I think you need to maintain your name in the industry and maintain your quality by not taking shortcuts.
Well put.
And then I think just controlling with it, like from a lighting supplier, like Lightline, the agency that I work with out here is really good. Some of the other agencies out here, I find, take a product, even the wholesalers, I guess, take a product and they make it, they'll make it expensive or not usable in a way that, like, you'll have a product, say it's $80, and it's $80, and you go to a wholesaler and it's $95, and now it can't compete with the crappy product you don't want to use. I've had that in a couple scenarios. Sure. So I think it's just kind of maintaining, as like the start of the food chain, like Lightline, maintaining that their agents are are holding a standard on their availability and price. And then the agents are holding the wholesaler accountable that if you're going to have my product, you're not going to mark it up to sell, like mark up A to sell B. That would be something I don't know how to really go about that without hurting someone's feelings, but basically, you know, controlling your line so that from where it leaves Lightline's design to where it leaves the wholesaler's shipping yard, that has to be controlled, I think, to a point that your brand is being represented.
Stephen, would you agree with that?
Yeah, and the only other real thing is more education. Like for the lighting industry to do better is to educate people better. Like, so people like Lightline, you guys take the time to educate. You get, you know, like upon request, but like to educate people more would be a value in any industry and in any industry, just because in my mind, knowledge is basically what helps us do our job better. And then if we are educated in that stuff, then we'll know what we're like, you know, nobody knows what a lumen is.
Right.
Like half the time you're talking to somebody about light output and you're like, well, the lumens are different here and different here. Like if there was to be more education on the usability and the light levels and stuff on lighting, then people would understand more. Like, because half the time I spend time educating customers, which is good for me, but if they already had some pre-knowledge, it would be helpful for them as well. They'd understand the difference between the cheap light and then a product.
Do you see a disconnect in accessing that information? Like, do you find it either a challenge to sift through what comes to you, or a challenge in that you don't see enough of it?
I'm kind of a get it if I want it kind of guy. So I've never, like, that part of the challenge isn't really, for me, it isn't that big of a deal because I'm used to always finding the information.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Like if it was more accessible on a wide spectrum, yes, it absolutely would be helpful.
Maybe things like webinars available on your website are a great tool.
Exactly. When I saw you guys doing this, it's crazy. Like this will actually help the light industry more than hurt it. Like this whole COVID thing, right? Because now people have to get involved, and we have time to do this.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
It's kind of cool.
Jed, what are your thoughts on that? Anything that, in your opinion, the industry?
Yeah, I would echo these guys. The education is super important. That I think you could have your engineers building amazing products, but if people don't know why and how they're amazing, what they do, then it's hard to sell them. It's hard for people to buy them, pay the price that they're worth.
Of course.
So just learn it. For us, we're hungry. There's so many times where I have a customer who I know has no limit on their budget. They want the best, but I feel limited in my knowledge. You know, I would love to be able to reach out and say, okay, you know, this is what I've done. This is what I'm proposing, but is there anything better that we could be doing?
Right.
For the space or a different fixture. And I think one of the best things that's happening, and I see Lightline a leader in this, is selling configurable fixtures. So, you know, you can order them way more custom and configurable. We love working with, you know, the LED track, different track, and you put the different tape in and the different lens on, you know, so something that's field configurable, field assembled, helps us, you know, not feel like we're being stuck with a limited product, but we can configure it.
Yeah,
I'd say educating and then having configurable products.
That's cool. Bonnie, what are your thoughts?
I see a lot of the times the end user actually doesn't know what they're buying because an engineer has told them, here's your lighting package, and they go, okay, fits into the budget, right? But then me as an installer gets there to install it and they have 100 foot candles on their desk because they were never educated on what they were actually buying. And me as the installer is then responsible to make it right for the customer, but I never did the design in the first place because the engineer just put in what they're being paid best to put in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're put in this position to make those on-site changes and by recommendation.
Exactly. I feel like the customer needs to be educated more at the time of design. When it comes to an engineer, if there's a lot of like capital projects that we as contractors don't get involved in until the job's been awarded.
Right.
Then we're made to make it right, right? So I really, really wish that engineers or that agents of products could somehow get engineers to more communicate with the end user and educate them on what they're buying.
Sure. Well, you know, things are always changing, and that's part of the excitement about this. You know, to hear that kind of feedback is great. You know, and maybe something that, you know, historically we've just had some kind of hidden barriers on that, you know, exist just because they have, you know, in terms of being able to have that transparency and communication. So, I mean, it just takes time to change, and sometimes that's what we need is someone like yourself to say, you know, go see the client on this to educate them and show them the differences, or show them the value in what they're actually getting, product exclusive or not, right? It can just be something that makes them smarter, be able to understand it more easily. All right, well, you know, we're getting close to the hour here, so it went a little longer than I'd promised. But if there are any questions there, I haven't been following the chat log, so I'll maybe ask Laura and Sarah for some assistance with that. But if anybody has some questions for our panelists, we've got a couple of minutes. Definitely open to hearing your thoughts.
Steve, I just thought I'd bring up one more thing I'm doing with the new forum frame system. I'm working with the university on doing acoustics as well. So integrating lighting and acoustics and using the forum grid system. We have some classrooms at the university that are all concrete.
Right.
And concrete ceilings and vents and ducts, and we just can't put lighting in it properly the way we would.
Yep.
So using the forum system allows us to create a grid, put in some acoustic tiles and lighting at the same time.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? You know, when we see how things are changing, we go to these open style concepts of spaces, right? You've got more limitations. If you don't have something to recess into, you know, lighting has to either suspend or be surface mounted to some degree. So it's kind of cool that you mentioned that, because, you know, when you think of a space like that, right, you've got to do something, and sound's going to go everywhere. So to have the ability to dampen it is cool. Well, I'm trying to find the chat here.
I did have a question come in. Have any of the panelists installed the Helios product on a project? If so, what was the end user's response after completion?
Good question. I don't know, any custom work, guys? Jed, I'm not sure if you'd had any experience with that one. It's one of our higher end down lights.
I tried, Steve. Well, we ended up with the 2-inch Sigmas instead.
Yeah. We had to cut that angle. Yeah. Just for the listeners out there, the pitch that Steve's referring to was pretty steep, beyond, you know, the regular 30 degree that you can find with most typical gimbals. So we'd utilized that degree of gimbal along with a light bending lens as an accessory to achieve the angle of the pitch. I think it was over 40, wasn't it? 45?
Yeah, it was 45.
Yeah.
No.
If none of the contractors on the call can answer that, if anybody else that's on this wants to hop in and answer, I think we could open it up and have this a little bit more of an open forum here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
No Helios installs?
No Helios.
Not for us, no, not yet.
How do the electricians handle the no-name brands that have been bombarding the market? What do you tell your clients when working with those types of products, or having it, I guess, brought to you, saying, you know, hey, I found this at Home Depot, look at this great new fixture?
We'll usually void our warranty So like if there's something wrong with it, you can deal with it, or you can pay me to come back and replace it. That's kind of the only leverage that we have as a contractor really on it. Whereas if it's our product, it's something that we stand behind, then we'll
Sure.
come back and replace it or fix it or whatever.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've actually lost jobs because I've refused to install product they've bought from Hopsing China or whatever, right? So
Sure.
we really try to work with our name is our sales pitch. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
the better products that we install that a customer can say, yeah, Evolution installed this, then it's better. We don't want to install product that we haven't recommended, really.
Of course. Again, that recurring theme, right? The ability to test it yourselves, to work with it, becomes part of your offering and your go-to, right? If it's outside of that, you always obviously practice some caution until you can become more familiar with it, I suppose.
Yeah. Testimonials are great from customers as well that you've already installed good product in. I tend to, if I'm trying to sell a customer or upsell a customer on a better product, I'll bring a testimonial from another customer that kind of shows them this is why we go with a better product.
One of the comments there was, in tongue-in-cheek kind of, good luck finding it next year sort of thing. I think is a pretty straightforward answer to that question, Ian, that you'd put forward, but yeah. Any other questions? All right, well, if you certainly do have any, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I've got the contact of these individuals. If there was anything in particular you wanted to ask them, we certainly can. But I'd like to especially thank our 4 panelists today, Bonnie, Jed, Stephen, and Matt. Thank you guys so much for joining us here and answering some questions and talking about your day-to-day. It's very much appreciated. And I'll connect with you guys offline here before the end of the day with something else. And just a reminder for everybody else, we do have the continuation of Lightline's webinar series. In a couple of days, we have a brief history of downlights, why we killed the can. Then for the holidays, the weekend that we have a day or 2 off, there's some special Easter eggs. There's just be a webinar series that you can connect on your own and check out. Next week, we've got a couple of unique sessions, designing a space, and then we have a CEU on the 17th, which would enable you to grab another credit there. And I'm pretty sure that we've got Deborah Gottesman doing that one as well. So getting the lighting you want, technology and specifications procurement. So on behalf of Lightline, thank you all. And again, thanks to our panelists. Guys, have a great day.
If there's any other topics that anybody would like to see or hear, please feel free to let us know. We're looking for some more ideas and we're happy to get on those. Thanks, Steve.